I stood in the hallway, the casserole still warm in my hands, while my son told me I was useless. Useless. After 30 years of keeping this roof over his head, after every mortgage check, every leaky faucet, every quiet sacrifice he never noticed. Maybe it's time you just left, he said, and he meant it. So I did. I left, but not before making sure he'd never call this house his again. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. Evelyn balanced the casserole dish carefully in her arms as she stepped onto the stone steps of Jason's townhouse. The porch light flickered once above her head. She'd made chicken tetrazzini, his favorite since grade school, and added a small container of peach cobbler on the side. A family night, she thought. Simple, warm, something familiar. She knocked once and let herself in. Hey, it's just me, she called gently, closing the door behind her. Thought I'd bring dinner. Jason was slumped on the couch, his laptop open but untouched, TV blaring something about layoffs on a finance channel. Nina was at the dining table in activewear, scrolling through her phone like it owed her something. Neither of them turned. I made that casserole you like, Evelyn added as she stepped into the kitchen, with extra mushrooms. Jason exhaled sharply. Mom, you can't just show up like this. It's been a day. Evelyn kept her smile soft, almost instinctively. I texted this morning. You said it was fine. He muttered something under his breath and snapped the laptop shut. Yeah, well, that was before my regional manager basically told me I've got 3 months to turn numbers around or I'm out. Nina glanced up, unimpressed. He's been drowning in stress. You think dinner fixes any of that? I wasn't trying to fix anything, Evelyn said, setting the dish on the counter. I just thought we could eat together, talk. Yeah, great timing, Jason said, standing abruptly. Because what I really need when my career's on the line is a guilt casserole. Evelyn's hand froze on the oven mitt. The sting was sharp, but she swallowed it, her voice even. I didn't mean to upset you. Oh, please, Nina chimed in with a low chuckle. You act like you're doing us favors. You can afford to act generous, right? Evelyn turned toward her slowly, catching the glint in Nina's smile, like this was a game. The lines on Evelyn's face deepened. She started to say something gentle, but Jason cut her off. No, really, he said, voice rising. What exactly do you think you're helping with, huh? You bring over food and think you're a hero? You don't even live here. You don't pay our bills. You don't deal with what we do every damn day. Evelyn's hands faltered. The casserole slipped half an inch in her grip before she steadied it again. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came. Jason stepped closer, the room suddenly too small, his voice low and sharp. You're useless, he said. You've been hanging around like a relic. Maybe it's time you just left. The words struck harder than he knew, not because they were loud, but because they were easy for him to say. Something inside Evelyn cracked, silently. Her vision blurred just enough to dull the kitchen's edges. The casserole dish clinked as she set it gently on the stove. She didn't move for a long second, didn't blink, didn't breathe. Across the room, Lily had been half curled on the armchair, earbuds in, phone in hand. But her eyes had been watching everything. She didn't speak, didn't even lift her head, but her shoulders tightened as if she'd taken the blow herself. Then, in a single motion, she stood and walked straight down the hallway, her phone still in her hand, her back rigid. The bedroom door clicked shut behind her. The silence in the living room was deafening. Nina turned back to her phone, smiling faintly. Jason ran a hand over his face like it was all just noise. Evelyn stood alone in the kitchen, hands still in front of her, palms slightly open like they were waiting to catch something that had already fallen. She stared at the casserole dish, the layers of cream and pasta and slow-cooked care. Then she reached for the foil, folded it back down, and walked toward the door. As she opened it, the cold evening air met her face, crisp, dry, unfamiliar. She didn't look back. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't slam the door. But as it clicked shut behind her, Evelyn Brooks already knew this. She would never bring him dinner again. The morning after the insult passed like fog across Evelyn's eyes. She moved through her bungalow without speaking, only the rustle of soft slippers against the tile floor giving her away. The scent of last night's casserole still clung faintly to the inside of her car, even though she'd left it in Jason's fridge with a post-it that simply said, "In case Lily gets hungry." Now, Evelyn stood in the hallway, staring at the linen closet, not for sheets, but for what lived behind them. She reached up and pulled a worn accordion folder from the top shelf. Dust danced in the sunlight as she laid it on the dining table and unlatched the metal clip. Thick envelopes spilled out, some crinkled, some stained by time, others pristine with handwritten labels: mortgage, insurance, contractors, tax deductions, receipts paid in full. She exhaled, slow and deep, and sat down. The first envelope she opened was heavy, dozens of canceled checks in her careful, looping cursive. She pulled one from near the top. First Federal Mortgage, July 2003, 1,217.45. The ink hadn't faded. Her signature was still sharp, anchored to the bottom corner like a quiet battle cry. She reached for another. August 2003, September, October, every month. No gaps. She laid them side by side in neat rows, like bricks in a house she'd built and never stopped holding up. "Grandma," Evelyn turned. Lily stood barefoot in the hallway, hoodie sleeves pushed halfway over her hands, phone dangling at her side. Her eyes drifted across the table. Rows of payment stubs, property tax receipts, permit copies, work orders with Evelyn's name under client. Some invoices still had the carbon paper behind them. "Were you keeping all this for something?" Lily asked. Evelyn smiled faintly, eyes not leaving the rows. "I kept it because no one else would." Lily stepped closer, slowly, then reached for a manila envelope labeled Roof Replacement, 2011. She pulled out a check stub and a contractor's estimate, signed and stamped. "You paid for all of this?" "For nearly everything," Evelyn said, voice flat now. "Jason was living with friends back then. Said he needed time to figure things out. I figured things out for him." She slid over a thick ledger book, not digital, not neat, but deliberate. Every line item matched a payment, every dollar accounted for in her blue ink pen. At the top of one page, highlighted in yellow, was a number circled twice: final mortgage payment, Feb 2017. Lily's eyes widened. "That's 8 years ago." Evelyn said. "He didn't even ask when the last payment cleared. Just started telling people it was his house." She flipped another page. Taped inside was a copy of the title transfer. Not the deed, just a symbolic document she'd drafted when Jason moved in. She had handed him a ceremonial set of keys that day, taken a photo of him smiling with a beer in one hand, the keys in the other. She found the picture, loose between pages. Lily picked it up. He looked so proud. He should have been grateful. Evelyn said it softly, not bitter, just done. She took the photo back, turned it over. On the back, she'd written in tidy cursive, "Jason moves in. I pray he makes this house a home." Then she folded it once and placed it atop the mortgage ledger. "Grandma," Lily said, sitting now, "what are you going to do?" Evelyn didn't answer right away. Instead, she stood and crossed to a drawer beneath the sideboard. From inside, she pulled out a narrow wooden box with a brass latch. She opened it, flipped through a few business cards tucked in the lid, and stopped on one. Daniel Pierce, Esquets, Real Estate and Estate Planning. A name she hadn't said out loud in a decade. A man who once helped her save her brother's house from a shady buyer. Steady, sharp. "I'm going to make sure," Evelyn said, holding the card between her fingers, "that he never lives here again." She reached for her phone and began to dial. The law office of Daniel Pierce was quiet in the way only serious places are. Mahogany trim lined the windows, brass nameplates on each door. No piped-in music, no reception chit-chat, just the ticking of a grandfather clock and the subtle scent of leather and pine oil. Evelyn stepped inside the glass entry and gave her name. The receptionist looked up with a respectful smile. "He's expecting you. Right through there." Evelyn walked in, heels muted against the thick rug. The office hadn't changed in 10 years. Not the walnut shelves stacked with thick legal volumes. Not the framed blueprint of a house on the back wall. And certainly not the man seated behind the wide oak conference table. Daniel Pierce rose, just as measured and crisp as she remembered. Trim suit, silver temples, eyes that didn't blink more than necessary. "Evelyn Brooks," he said, extending a hand. Still carrying more strength than most people bring to court. She smiled, small and humorless. "You remember my brother's mess? Like it was last week. You kept that house out of probate hell." "I need to do it again," she said, setting a thick binder on the table. "But this time, it's my house. And my son." Daniel's brow lifted as he gestured for her to sit. She unzipped the binder and began unloading. The ledger, the canceled checks, the contractor releases, the tax receipts, the symbolic transfer document. Page after page, Evelyn moved like a woman laying out her war medals, not for pride, but for proof. When she got to the photo of Jason holding the keys, she paused, then slid it forward without comment. Daniel stayed silent as he reviewed the stack. His fingers moved quickly, flipping, scanning, making quiet notes on a yellow legal pad. When he reached the final mortgage receipt and the property tax stubs, he leaned back. "And who's on title now?" he asked. "Me," Evelyn said. "Sole owner. I never added his name. I told him it was his house. I let him believe it. But I never gave up legal ownership." Daniel nodded. "And the deed, do you recall what kind?" "General warranty," she said. "No encumbrances. Clean title. I have a copy in the back of the binder." He flipped to it. His brow furrowed. "No liens recorded against it, yet," he murmured. "But if Jason starts poking around and thinks he's owed something, he might try to file something fraudulent. Or worse, contest a transfer." "That's what I need to stop," Evelyn said, her voice firm. "I want it locked down so tight that even a whisper of a claim slides off." Daniel looked up. "Then we start with a revocable living trust. We place the property into it. You retain full rights while living. You name a successor beneficiary. Someone you trust." "Lily," Evelyn said without hesitation. "Good. We'll structure it so that the trust holds title, not you directly. That makes it harder to touch. We'll also add conduct clauses to define who can occupy the home and under what conditions. That way, even if Jason tries to come back, he'd have to play by the trust rules or forfeit his rights entirely." Evelyn leaned forward. "Can he challenge it?" Daniel tapped the pen against his notepad. "He can try. But if we document everything, financials, history, intent, and keep the trust airtight, he'll have no legal standing, especially if we get ahead of him." She studied the room for a moment, the rich wood, the quiet ticking. Then she looked back down at the papers, the artifacts of 30 years of sacrifice, the small, ordinary acts that had built everything Jason now took for granted. "I want the strongest version of this you can write," she said quietly. "You'll get it," Daniel replied. "But I need you to be prepared. This won't be polite. If he gets wind of what we're doing, he may go public, get hostile, maybe even throw lawyers at us. You sure you're ready for that?" Evelyn nodded slowly. "I've lived through worse." Daniel opened a drawer, pulled out a retainer agreement, and slid it across the table. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She signed her name with the same pen she used on those mortgage checks all those years ago. Deliberate, clean, no second guessing. The knock came at 10:12 a.m. Evelyn didn't flinch. She was already seated at the dining table, her second cup of black coffee cooling beside a thin stack of mortgage receipts. The morning sunlight cut in sideways through the half-drawn blinds, casting long lines across the table like prison bars. 3 more sharp knocks. Then Jason's voice. "Mom, it's us." Not, "Hey, you home?" Not, "Can we talk?" Just, "It's us." As if that still meant something. Evelyn stood and opened the door halfway. Jason and Nina stood side by side on the porch, each holding takeout coffee cups they hadn't touched. Both wore smiles that didn't touch their eyes. "You okay?" Jason asked, tilting his head. "We've been trying to check on you since you left kind of suddenly," Nina added too brightly. "We thought you might need someone to talk to. Maybe you've been talking to the wrong people." Evelyn opened the door just wide enough to let them in, but not wide enough to feel welcoming. "Come in," she said flatly, stepping aside. They entered like they owned the place. Jason glanced around like something might have changed in the last 2 days. Nina dropped her handbag on the entryway table, uninvited. Lily appeared at the hallway threshold, earbuds hanging loose around her neck. Her eyes met Evelyn's, questioning. "Porch," Evelyn mouthed. Lily nodded silently and disappeared out the side door, slipping her phone into record mode as she moved. Jason wasted no time. "So," he began, pacing slowly near the fireplace. "I've been hearing things. Some interesting things. Legal things. Are you working with someone?" Evelyn took her seat again at the table, unmoved. "I speak with all kinds of people." Jason's smile thinned. "You know what I mean. A lawyer." Evelyn gave a slow blink. "If you're asking whether I'm seeking counsel about the home I legally own, the answer is yes," Jason scoffed. "Unbelievable." Nina slid in beside her partner like a second act in a poorly rehearsed play. "Look, we just want to understand, because from the outside, it's starting to look like someone's influencing you, making decisions that don't feel like you." Evelyn tilted her head calmly. "You mean decisions where I no longer fund your lifestyle?" Nina blinked. Jason flushed. Evelyn reached slowly for the stack of mortgage receipts beside her coffee. She placed a hand gently on top, fingers splayed, not hiding the documents, but anchoring them. "I've got 3 decades of influence right here," she said. "Every check, every invoice, every tax record, all signed by me." Jason's jaw clenched. "You're seriously going to pretend this is about paperwork, after all we've done for you?" Lily re-entered just in time to catch that line, holding a glass of water she hadn't intended to drink. She moved wordlessly through the kitchen, set the glass on the counter, and disappeared back onto the porch. Evelyn remained seated. "This isn't about punishment," she said. "It's about protection." Jason stepped forward. "From your own son." "No," she said evenly. "From your behavior." That stopped him. The smirk slipped just enough for her to notice. Nina tried again, her tone syrupy. "Evelyn, you don't need to make this a war. We all want peace here." Evelyn looked up, meeting her eyes. "Then stop acting like invaders." Silence settled into the room like a dropped curtain. No one moved for several seconds. Then Jason, unable to handle stillness, turned toward the door. "This isn't over," he muttered. "You're not going to shut me out of my own—" He stopped short of saying house. Smart. They left without another word. Evelyn closed the door behind them, slow and steady. She locked the deadbolt, then the chain. On the porch, Lily ended the recording. She sat on the swing, uploaded the video to a private drive, and named the file for Daniel 10 to 1425.mp4. Inside, Evelyn returned to the table. Her coffee had gone cold, but she didn't care. She reached for her phone. The pen felt heavier than it should have, not literally, just in the way some objects hum with finality. Evelyn sat at the head of Daniel Pierce's conference table, the same wide oak slab that had once held her brother's foreclosure paperwork. Now it held a thicker, more defiant stack. The freshly printed documents of a revocable living trust, its language sharp and surgical. Daniel sat opposite her, glasses perched low on his nose as he reviewed the packet one last time. "This version reflects every clause we discussed," he said, flipping to a highlighted page. "Life estate secured. Full title moves into the trust. Lily is named successor trustee and beneficiary." He paused, then tapped a paragraph near the bottom. "And here's the conduct clause. No one, including Jason, may occupy the property without your express consent, and only under good faith terms. Emotional coercion, harassment, exploitation. Any of it triggers immediate revocation of privileges. Evelyn stared down at the line that bore her name. Settler, Evelyn Brooks. She breathed in through her nose, out through her mouth. Steady, but aware that this was the first time she'd ever signed something designed to keep her own son away. Lily sat silently beside her, knees pulled close, hands tucked under her thighs like a little girl again. She hadn't spoken much during the ride over, just watched out the window, earbuds in, but no music playing. "Lily," Evelyn said gently, glancing sideways. "You okay with this?" Lily blinked and nodded just once. "I'm more than okay." Evelyn turned back to Daniel. "Let's do it." Daniel slid the pen toward her, uncapped. "Start here, initial each page." The room went still, just the soft scratch of pen on paper. Evelyn's name marking territory she'd already bled for. Page 1, page 2, page 3. Her initials bloomed in the corners like tiny shields. By the 5th page, her hands slowed. Not from fatigue, from the strange, hollow ache of making something real. Protecting herself had always been instinct. Formalizing it? That felt new and final. Daniel spoke only once more. "The county clerk will timestamp this by end of day. Once it's recorded, it's not theoretical anymore. The house won't be yours, not legally. It'll belong to the trust, to the structure you control, but not Jason. Not ever." Evelyn nodded once, firmly, and signed the final page. Her full name, legible and proud. Daniel picked up the papers and slid them into a pre-marked envelope. "I'll have the paralegal hand-deliver this to the county office. It'll be live within hours." He stood, pressing the seal closed. "You just changed everything." Evelyn exhaled and leaned back in the leather chair. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, her shoulders didn't feel like they were bracing for impact. She looked at Lily, who had gone strangely still. Tears sat in her granddaughter's eyes, too proud to fall. "You kept him from stealing it," Lily whispered. "And you gave it to me instead." "No," Evelyn said softly. "I gave it to whoever protects it." Lily's lip quivered, and she wiped at her face with her sleeve. "Still, you didn't have to." "Yes," Evelyn replied, voice low but unwavering. "I did, because love without boundaries isn't love. It's servitude." And I stopped serving. They left Daniel's office under the cloudless Austin sky, the sun high and unapologetic. Evelyn felt the warmth on her skin and the cool click of the trust documents tucked safely into her bag. As they reached the car, Evelyn's phone buzzed. She opened the screen to a text from a blocked number. "You really think paperwork can protect you? You'll regret this. Jay." She stared at it, unmoved. Lily leaned over, read it too, and without a word, took a screenshot, tagged it, Threat 1, and uploaded it to the cloud. Evelyn slid her phone into her purse. The first real storm of fall swept through Austin overnight. A low, growling front that left tree branches scattered across the yards and knocked out power on 2 blocks over. Evelyn stood at her kitchen window that morning, watching the wind drag a dented trash can lid across the street like a coin on its edge. Then came the pounding. Not a knock, a demand. 3 hard blows against her front door, the kind that made the picture frames tremble slightly against the hallway wall. She didn't need to look through the peephole. Jason's voice came through the door like a crack of thunder. "Open up, Mom." Lily, mid-sip of her tea, flinched. Evelyn didn't move. She kept stirring her oatmeal like it was just another Thursday. Jason hit the door again. "I saw what you filed. You really think you can kick me out of a place I've been living in for years?" "You haven't lived here in months," Evelyn said calmly, loud enough to carry. "I have stuff here," he shouted. "Mail, clothes, my gaming console. I've got rights. You can't just erase me with a piece of paper." From the couch, Lily unlocked her phone with a quiet swipe and opened the security app Daniel had helped them install. The outdoor camera feed flickered into view. Jason, disheveled, red-faced, arms flailing as he ranted at the door. Nina stood behind him, arms crossed, coat slung lazily over one shoulder like she was at a brunch line. Not a property dispute. Evelyn took one more bite of oatmeal before setting her bowl in the sink. Then she reached for her phone and called Daniel. He answered on the second ring. "He's here," she said simply. Daniel's voice was crisp. "Don't open the door. Let him shout. The trust protects title, but this isn't about ownership now. It's occupancy. That's a separate fight." "So what do I do?" Evelyn asked. "Formalize the cutoff. Revoke any informal permissions. Get the locks changed. Make a record. Treat it like the eviction it is." Evelyn nodded. Understood. She hung up and walked to the entryway with the same energy she'd once used to break up schoolyard fights. Firm, unflinching, not cruel. "Just done." Jason's voice surged again. "You seriously think you can cut me out like some tenant?" Evelyn pulled out a single sheet of paper she'd printed the night before. A notice of revocation of permission to occupy. It wasn't legally required, Daniel had said, but it was smart and satisfying. She slipped it into a plastic sleeve, opened the mail slot, and let it fall through with a dull slap at Jason's feet. "You were never a tenant," she said from the other side of the door. "You were a guest, and the invitation has ended." There was a pause, then an explosion of fury. Jason kicked the door. "You are not doing this. You are not locking me out of my own." Lily's voice came from the living room, sharp and clear. "Careful." Jason paused again. "I'm recording," Lily added, loud enough to carry. "And you just crossed the line between disappointed son and trespasser." Outside, Nina leaned in and hissed something at Jason. He spun, furious, then turned back toward the door. "You think you're smart, Mom? You think this is going to make you feel powerful? You're going to look like a monster when this gets out." Nina stepped forward, finally breaking her silence. "We'll go public," she called out. "You think your neighbors won't talk? Think the HOA board won't turn when they hear how you're treating your own family?" Evelyn stepped to the side window, drew the curtain halfway back, and looked Nina directly in the eye. Her expression didn't move, not a flicker of fear, not an inch of guilt. She simply lifted her hand and waved, not a dismissive wave, not a sarcastic one, a calm, graceful goodbye wave. Jason cursed under his breath. Nina's face tightened like she'd just swallowed something sour. They stormed off down the front path. Evelyn let the curtain fall. 2 hours later, the locksmith came. She watched him remove the last screw from the old deadbolt, the same one Jason used to barrel through every Thanksgiving without knocking. In its place, a new digital lock clicked into position. Evelyn handed Lily a copy of the code, printed and sealed. "For emergencies only," she said. Lily nodded and placed the envelope into her fireproof folder alongside the trust paperwork. The envelope was thick, legal grade, and stamped with a Rush Service label. Evelyn sat on her porch steps as the wind teased the top flap open in her hands. She didn't need to finish reading to understand what it was. Jason had made his next move. Inside, pages of legal filings, case numbers, sworn statements, and one bold header, petition for temporary injunction and emergency relief. He was asking the court to freeze the trust, halt the deed transfer, and restore residential access on grounds of family displacement. A photo of Jason, arms folded outside Evelyn's front door, was stapled to the declaration. Below it, Nina's signature. Evelyn folded the packet calmly and set it on the table next to her coffee, then picked up the phone and dialed. Daniel answered mid-sentence, as if he were already expecting her. "I saw the filing. It's public," he said. "They're leaning on optics, trying to paint you as a vindictive parent booting her own child into the street." "They're not entirely wrong," Evelyn said, her tone unreadable. "Except for the part where it's his house." Daniel let out a breath. "We'll file a response. No delays." By the next morning, his office looked more like a war room than a law firm. The ledgers Evelyn had meticulously kept were now neatly color-coded and tabbed. Financial records, mortgage checks, contractor invoices, all laid out across the table like a financial autopsy. A copy of the trust agreement sat in a binder thick enough to anchor a ship. Lily sat in the corner chair, eyes darting over her printed subpoena. It had arrived by courier just after sunset. She was being called to testify. To confirm the verbal abuse, the moment he told her to leave, Daniel had explained. Lily nodded, serious. I have the recording. I can say exactly what happened. I saved the raw file, too, metadata and all. You'll do fine, Daniel said. Then turned to Evelyn. This hearing isn't about winning, not yet. It's about not losing, not letting them stop us mid-stride. We need to hold the line. The courtroom was windowless and cold, a concrete gray hearing room with no jury box, no pomp. Just a judge, 2 counsel tables, and the clattering hum of the clerk's laptop keys. Jason wore a navy blazer that didn't fit right in the shoulders. He looked like a man trying to dress the part of someone reasonable. Nina sat behind him, face carefully composed, legs crossed tight. Evelyn didn't dress for war. She dressed for church. Black slacks, dark sweater, a simple pendant she hadn't worn in years. The judge entered. Petitioner may proceed, the clerk announced. Jason's lawyer, young, fast-talking, slick with too much cologne, rose with a practiced air of sympathy. Your Honor, this is a heartbreaking matter. My client has been effectively evicted from what has long been his primary residence, a property he was led to believe was promised to him, his mother's home. He has no stable residence, no current employment. He is, in every real sense, at risk of homelessness. Jason stared at the table like it owed him something. The judge nodded slowly, turning to Daniel. Response? Daniel stood, buttoned his coat, and walked to the evidence tray like he was placing the first bricks in a fortress. He laid down copies of Evelyn's mortgage payments spanning 30 years, the recorded deed and trust transfer, time-stamped by the Travis County clerk, the signed revocation notice, a still frame from the front porch camera, date-stamped, showing Jason screaming with his hand raised, a typed transcript of the hallway recording. Finally, he handed Lily the USB stick. She rose, walked it to the clerk, and returned to her seat with a poise that didn't match her age. Your Honor, Daniel said, this is not an eviction. This is the formal end of a long-standing manipulation. My client owns this property legally and equitably. She's housed him, fed him, funded him. And now he's attempting to weaponize her kindness into tenancy. We won't allow it. The judge flipped through the trust documents, lingering on the occupancy clause. Clause 8, Daniel prompted, states that any form of coercion or abuse nullifies occupancy privileges. That language was notarized and filed before the petition. The judge looked over her glasses. And you're saying Mr. Brooks has no legal claim? None, Daniel replied. He was never on the deed, never on the mortgage, never paid rent, never signed a lease. The room went silent. Even the clerk stopped typing. Jason shifted in his chair. Nina reached for his hand. He pulled it away. The ruling wasn't even 48 hours old when the neighborhood whispers began. It started innocuously. A comment under a picture of Evelyn's garden on the HOA's community Facebook page. Sad to see that family trouble has come to 117 Magnolia. By nightfall, there were full posts circulating. Anyone know why Evelyn Brooks kicked out her only son? This is why we don't transfer homes before we're dead. Jason had struck first in the court of public opinion. A grainy photo showed up on Nextdoor. Jason sitting on the curb outside Evelyn's bungalow, arms wrapped around his knees, face cast downward, as if he were a wounded stray. Nina had taken the photo and sent it to her mom group chat. And from there it spread like wildfire. The caption beneath it read, "He just wanted a roof over his head. His mother had other plans." Lily showed the post to Evelyn the next morning, phone tilted across the kitchen table. Evelyn squinted at the screen. They're framing him like a war refugee, Lily muttered. Evelyn sipped her coffee, unbothered. Let them. But Daniel didn't share that patience. He called that afternoon, voice clipped and alert. We need to respond, not emotionally, factually. These stories gain weight when silence fills the gaps. I don't want to fan flames, Evelyn said. I don't want this to become a spectacle. It already is, Daniel replied. But we don't have to throw gas on it. Just light a match under the truth. He proposed a short statement. A dignified clarification, nothing aggressive. Evelyn agreed, on one condition. Lily writes it, she said. Lily blinked. Me? You know the tone, Evelyn said. You know how to say it without saying too much, and she did. That night, Lily sat at her desk and typed a single-page statement under the heading, A Note from Evelyn Brooks, Magnolia Lane, resident since 1985. It spoke of decades of financial responsibility, of the home being earned, not inherited. Of boundaries set after years of grace, not vengeance. No names were mentioned, no fingers pointed. The final line read, This house has always been a home, but homes are built on love, not entitlement. They posted it quietly to the HOA page and shared it in a local group chat with a few longtime neighbors. Within hours, the tide shifted. One neighbor, a retired firefighter named Mitch, commented, Evelyn helped me patch my roof after a hailstorm in '09. If she says she paid for that place, I believe her. A woman from 4 houses down added, Jason once asked me to loan him $500 and ghosted when I said no. Just saying. County records were checked. The trust deed was public. Evelyn's name had been on the mortgage since 1987. The documents didn't lie. Jason wasn't prepared for that kind of resistance. He called in a favor from a friend in marketing, someone with a small PR outfit and a talent for digital storytelling. A new narrative went live on his LinkedIn page. A heartfelt essay titled When Family Turns Cold, featuring a moody portrait of Jason leaning against a brick wall, unshaven, eyes cast thoughtfully into the distance. It was ridiculous, but it gained traction for a moment. Until Nina posted a carousel of personal photos to Instagram, Jason teaching Lily to ride a bike, Evelyn blowing out candles with her arm around him, a blurry Christmas morning from years back. Her caption, What happened to this family? It was meant to break hearts. Instead, it broke her image. Because in the comments, buried between sympathy and clueless emojis, were 2 brutal screenshots. Jason's text, You really think paperwork can protect you? You'll regret this. A side-by-side of Evelyn's trust filing and the public record showing Jason had never held title. The comments turned fast. So he never owned the house? This is straight-up elder abuse. Shameful. Trying to emotionally blackmail your mom because she won't bankroll you anymore? Nah. Nina quietly turned off commenting, then made her account private, then vanished from social media entirely. Daniel's office smelled like printer toner and brewing coffee, a sure sign that another motion had landed. He didn't look up as Evelyn stepped inside. He was still reading the fresh filing that had come in overnight. They've pivoted, he said flatly. Evelyn set her purse down, unbothered. To what this time? Undue influence, he said. Jason's attorney is claiming you weren't of sound mind when you created the trust, and that Lily manipulated you. Evelyn blinked. Lily? Specifically, that she acted as an emotional proxy, that she coached you into cutting Jason out, that she leveraged your age and isolation to orchestrate the entire plan. Evelyn sat slowly, her spine straight. So now I'm a helpless old woman, and she's the mastermind. Daniel tapped the page. They're claiming Lily stood to gain, and therefore had motive. They're hoping to reframe the narrative. From entitled adult son to wronged heir. Lily, sitting in the corner of the room, stared at the wall like she was trying not to come unglued. They can't be serious, she muttered. I didn't manipulate anything. Daniel finally looked up. Doesn't matter what's true. It only matters what they can argue. But don't worry, We're going to bury this claim with evidence so airtight, the judge won't even need to blink. And he did. By the end of the day, Daniel had filed a blistering counter-motion. It included Evelyn's bank statements, tracking mortgage and tax payments across 30 years, contractor receipts with Evelyn's signature, not Lily's, and verified payment trails. A notarized affidavit from the local banker who had helped Evelyn refinance in 2008, swearing that Evelyn handled every detail independently. 2 letters from longtime neighbors confirming Evelyn's financial control of the household for decades. And then there was the recording. Daniel played it in the courtroom like the finale of a slow-burning opera. Jason's voice, clear and cruel, echoed through the speaker. "You're useless. Maybe you should just leave." The judge's brow lifted ever so slightly. Jason's lawyer tried to object, said it was out of context, that the moment was heated, not representative. But Daniel had already queued up the next clip, the one from the porch, where Jason threatened to expose Evelyn to the neighborhood. "And that," Daniel said, "is motive." The judge steepled her fingers. "And the competency question?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Glad you asked." He called his final witness, Dr. Marla Kessler, an independent geriatric specialist from Austin General. She took the stand with calm authority and testified that she'd performed a full cognitive evaluation on Evelyn within weeks of the trust creation. She was lucid, decisive, and fully capable of understanding complex legal decisions, Dr. Kessler said. There were no signs of cognitive decline. In fact, I'd say she's sharper than most people 20 years younger. Jason slumped visibly in his chair. Nina didn't attend. When the judge returned from her recess, the air in the courtroom changed. It was colder, more decisive. She adjusted her glasses, flipped once more through the file, and looked directly at Jason. "Petitioner has failed to demonstrate any credible evidence of undue influence or diminished capacity. The audio evidence supports the respondent's motive. The financial documentation is thorough, and the medical testimony is clear." Jason's jaw clenched. His attorney shifted, clearly sensing the loss. "The motion for emergency injunction is denied," the judge said firmly. "The trust remains valid. The deed stands, and unless new, material evidence is brought forward, this court considers the issue of ownership settled." The gavel didn't even sound loud, just final. Lily let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Evelyn placed a hand on her knee, calm but resolute. Jason didn't look at either of them as they walked past. His eyes stayed fixed on the floor. Evelyn hadn't expected joy. She'd expected relief, maybe stillness, a silent house and a cooling tide. But joy? That came as a surprise. It came in the form of folding chairs set out on her lawn for the neighborhood book club's first in-person meeting in 3 years. It came from a jar of hand-labeled tea bags she left in a wooden tray by the front door, marked, "Take one for the road." And it came in the form of a child, 8, maybe 9, who asked, "Is it okay if I bring my spelling words again next time?" She didn't just protect her home. She'd given it purpose. The dining room once used to host Jason's birthday parties was now rearranged with a large corkboard titled Magnolia Neighbors Calendar. Lily had designed it, printed neat headers, and color-coded each event. Fridays were tutoring nights, Saturdays, craft and quilt circles. Every second Sunday, open dinner, potluck style, and Tuesday afternoons, knitting for veterans. Lily stood on a step stool, hanging pushpins with little American flags. Evelyn watched from the hallway, arms crossed, lips twitching toward a smile. "You're making this house smarter than it's ever been," she said. Lily grinned. And warmer. Neighbors began dropping by unannounced, but not with complaints or accusations like before. They came with mason jars full of soup, with rickety card tables to loan, with envelopes holding $10 bills for what they called the Magnolia Fund. It started small, just enough to replace a flickering porch light, restock printer ink, and pay for a new whiteboard in the tutoring nook. But it grew. One day, an older couple Evelyn barely knew brought over a doorbell camera with installation instructions handwritten on a post-it. "You helped my nephew pass algebra," the man said. "Least we can do." Even the city inspector, long wary of anything not strictly residential, gave a quiet nod after walking through the house. "I've seen worse," he muttered with a wink, and signed the form. Jason, meanwhile, lingered in the shadows of the digital world. He posted less often now, just cryptic rants about fake community heroes and how the court doesn't care about bloodlines. But the likes had thinned. The sympathy had drained. His followers, the handful that remained, were tired. And Evelyn knew he was watching. She saw the unfamiliar car parked across from the house twice in 1 week. She noticed the way the next-door thread about the tutoring program mysteriously drew a thumbs down every time she updated the schedule. She even caught a glimpse of Jason's reflection in the tinted window of a nearby SUV during a Saturday dinner. But he never came close. He was still trying to win back the narrative, just not the house. That door had closed, permanently. Inside, Evelyn had found new rituals. Each morning, she'd open the curtains wide and place a small ceramic pitcher of fresh flowers on the windowsill. And every evening, she'd walk the halls not in fear, but in function, checking locks not because she worried, but because she could. Nina, on the other hand, had begun to unravel. Daniel forwarded Evelyn a screen grab of a private thread from a legal forum. Nina had filed an HR complaint against her own employer, alleging workplace retaliation due to viral harassment from personal matters. Someone had anonymously leaked screenshots of Jason's messages into her department Slack. Her complaint ended with the words, "This online persecution has destroyed our professional reputations." Evelyn stared at the email for a long moment before closing her laptop without response. She wasn't interested in revenge. She was interested in peace. And finally, she had it. The envelope had no return address, but the contents were louder than any sender's name. Evelyn sat at the kitchen island, fingers smoothing out the wrinkles in the crumpled photocopy. Lily leaned in beside her, scanning the grainy print. At the top, a contractor's letterhead, barely legible. Below it, a red stamp. Notice of mechanics lien filed. Amount due, $12,740.60. "For what?" Lily asked, brow furrowed. Evelyn shook her head. "The sunroom work, maybe. That was 2 years ago. I paid them in full." Daniel's voice came through speakerphone, calm but tight. "I checked the county records. There is a partial lien filed under that contractor's name, but it's sloppily done. No project description, no matching invoice number, and the date listed is 6 months after the trust deed was filed." Lily snorted. "Jason," Daniel didn't argue, "we'll subpoena the contractor's office, but I need every scrap of documentation you have. Receipts, checks, email chains, everything." Evelyn opened the credenza drawer with a resigned sigh, pulling the green folder labeled Home Improvements, 2022. Inside, a stamped invoice marked Paid in Full, a scanned copy of her check, and a signed lien waiver from the contractor himself, scribbled in blue ink on company letterhead. She scanned it all to Daniel within the hour. By the end of the week, Daniel had filed a motion to expunge the lien. But the court didn't bite just yet. The judge froze any further administrative actions on the trust until the lien's legitimacy is resolved, Daniel explained during a video call. "It's temporary, but annoying, like gum on your shoe." "They're trying to muddy the water," Evelyn said flatly. Jason couldn't break the door, so now he's going after the pipes. Daniel nodded. "The contractor's business was dissolved 3 months ago. I've contacted the licensing board. Their records are inconsistent. Tax ID number doesn't match the lien filing." "So it's fraudulent?" Lily asked. "Very likely. Or careless, which is just as dangerous in court. The burden's on us now to prove it wasn't owed." Evelyn leaned back, arms crossed. "What happens if we can't?" "The trust holds," Daniel assured her. "But it creates room for Jason to argue that the property is encumbered and should be restructured, which could open the door to negotiations." Lily's eyes narrowed. That's what this is. He's trying to wear us down. Make us bargain. Evelyn looked out the window, where the neighborhood's tutoring board still stood in the front yard, fluttering slightly in the autumn breeze. No, she said. He's trying to make noise, but he won't be heard here. Later that week, Daniel got a call back from the defunct contractor's former office line. A woman answered, voice brittle and impatient. Yes, we did work at that address. Yes, it was paid. Yes, the paperwork was a mess when the company shut down. I have a USB drive of job records, but no one's updated anything in months. She promised to mail a copy. It wasn't airtight yet, but it was enough for Daniel to return to court and argue in person that the lien was a ghost claim, attached to a closed business with no active legal standing. But the judge, cautious and deliberate, paused everything. Until proof of payment is verified by third-party record, she ruled. No amendments, transfers, or disbursements may be made to or from the trust. Evelyn accepted it with grace. Lily did not. He just bought himself another delay, she fumed as they walked out of the courthouse. Another month to crawl around in the dirt. He's out of tricks, Evelyn said. Now he's just scratching at the floorboards. Lily was halfway through her second energy drink and her third page of bio notes when the security alert pinged her laptop. Motion detected. Backyard shed cam. 11:38 p.m. She paused, pulled her earbuds out, and clicked the feed. A flicker of movement, too fast for the sensor light to catch fully. Just a dark silhouette slipping around the edge of the tool shed, like a shadow that didn't want to belong to anything. She blinked and rewound. Froze the frame. The figure wore a hoodie, head down, but the posture was unmistakable. Tense shoulders. Angry knees. Jason. Her heart kicked once in her chest, but her hands moved fast. First, screenshot the clip. Then, grab her phone. She didn't call the police. Not yet. First, she called Daniel. He picked up instantly. No hello, just, what did he do? He's in the backyard, she whispered. He's by the shed. I don't think he knows we have a motion cam there. Daniel's voice was razor sharp. Preserve the footage, upload to the folder, call the police immediately, then wake your grandmother. Lily moved fast. By the time the local patrol car rolled quietly into the driveway 8 minutes later, Evelyn stood fully dressed in her hallway, her cardigan buttoned up and hands steady at her sides. She hadn't said much, just looked at the screen, then nodded. She didn't ask why Jason was there. She already knew. The officers approached with cautious steps and clipped voices. Their flashlights cut across the backyard like blades through smoke. Jason didn't run. He stood near the rusted lawn chair by the shed, panting hard, fists clenched at his sides. She stole it, he screamed when the officers approached. My own mother. You people don't get it. She stole my inheritance. One of the officers asked for ID. Jason slapped his wallet onto the metal table, shouting as he did. She can't just erase me with lawyers and locks. You don't know what she promised me. She said it would be mine. She gave me the keys. You do not live here, sir, the officer said calmly. You've been cited for trespassing once already. You show up on this property again. It becomes a criminal charge. Jason didn't back down. He jabbed a finger at the window, where Lily and Evelyn stood behind the curtain. She used that little girl to cut me out. That house is mine. The officer stepped forward. Sir, step away from the shed. Jason swore, loud and sharp, then louder, then again. It took both officers to corral him off the lawn and into the street. No cuffs, just humiliation. But that somehow stung worse. By the time the cruiser pulled away, Evelyn had already texted Daniel. Trespass incident confirmed. Video stored. Police on record. Daniel responded within minutes. This gives us grounds for a protective order. I'll file in the morning. And he did. The motion was swift and ironclad. An emergency request for a civil restraining order tied directly to the trust's occupancy clauses. Daniel included the body cam footage from the responding officers, a digital copy of Lily's security cam video, the screenshot of Jason in the backyard, a sworn statement from Evelyn, and the history of hostile texts Jason had foolishly never stopped sending. The judge approved it within 48 hours. Jason was barred from the property, not just physically, but digitally. No contact, no surveillance, no proximity within 300 feet. Violating it wouldn't just be a family drama. It would be a felony. When the papers were served, Jason didn't answer the door himself. Nina did. She barely opened it, just enough to take the envelope with her name on the top copy, too. When she read it, her face didn't harden. It sank Daniel didn't knock when he entered Evelyn's kitchen that morning. He knew better by now. She was already at the table, 2 mugs out, one filled with coffee, the other still steaming from the kettle. Lily sat across from her, notebook open, pen tapping a quiet rhythm against her page. Daniel dropped a thick folder between them. "Let's finish this," he said. Evelyn nodded. "This is the last measure," he continued, flipping the folder open to a flagged page. "We're locking every remaining door. Nothing left to argue. Nothing left to claw at." He laid out the pieces one by one. An amended trust structure, one that included a no harassment covenant, legally enforceable and permanently recorded with the county. A clause granting eviction authority over anyone, family or not, who violated conduct rules within 30 feet of the property. A new charitable maintenance endowment, set aside from Evelyn's estate, earmarked for Magnolia Lane's community programs, with one catch. If the covenant was ever broken, the trust's remaining assets would bypass the family entirely and go to fund the community center in perpetuity. "This is the part that stings," Daniel said, pointing to the final paragraph. "If Jason harasses you again, online, in person, through any proxy, the trust can automatically reroute. No court filing required, no hearing, one violation and the assets move." Evelyn's eyes didn't flinch. "I want that clause." Daniel nodded. "Then we'll sign it. Notarized today. Filed tomorrow." Lily swallowed hard. "Will the judge allow it?" "She already has. We submitted the initial proposal last week. Quietly. This is just the final version." Evelyn took the pen from the table. One signature, then another, and another, each one smoother than the last. When it was done, Daniel closed the binder with a soft thud, like sealing a crypt. "It's done," he said. "There's no more path left for him, no appeal that holds weight, no loophole he can squeeze through." The final hearing was procedural, but Jason showed up anyway. He hadn't been required to, but he came, pale, underslept, wearing a suit that didn't hide the unraveling beneath. His eyes were bloodshot. His jaw clenched so tight it looked wired shut. He didn't speak. Not when the judge reviewed the amended terms. Not when Daniel recited the trust's financial lineage. Again, for the record. Not when Evelyn, in a calm, composed voice, reaffirmed her consent to every clause. Not even when the judge turned toward him and said plainly, "Mr. Brooks, any future disruption will not only jeopardize your access to this home, but may result in monetary damages owed to the trust. Do you understand this?" He gave a tiny, twitching nod. Not yes. Just that he heard it. Lily, seated in the second row, held Evelyn's bag tight in her lap. Inside it, tucked beneath a manila folder of extra copies, was the original photo of Evelyn holding the first mortgage receipt from 1987. She'd kept it all these years. When the hearing adjourned, the judge didn't linger. No handshake, no lecture, just the slam of her gavel and a phrase that would echo long after the courtroom emptied. "This matter is legally resolved." Jason stood motionless, then turned, slowly, and left without a word. Evelyn didn't watch him go. She just signed the last set of certified copies, slipped them into the leather binder Daniel handed her, and drew a long, steady breath. It wasn't triumphant. It wasn't bitter. It was clean. It was free. As they walked out into the parking lot, Daniel turned to her. "You know what he'll do now, don't you?" Evelyn adjusted her bag. Try to find another story to tell, Daniel gave a dry chuckle. Let him. Evelyn paused, hand on the door handle of her car. I hope someday he finds one he can live with. Then she got in, turned the key, and drove away. It started with a porch light. Not the kind Evelyn had replaced after the break-in, or the one the city inspector approved, but something softer, warm, golden. A vintage-style lantern that cast a steady glow over the bungalow's steps. By the time the first cold snap of winter reached Magnolia Lane, the house didn't look like a fortress anymore. It looked like a lighthouse. Every Friday evening, children arrived in ones and twos, backpacks bouncing, cheeks flushed, for tutoring hour. Lily stood by the door with a clipboard and a thermos of cocoa, assigning seats and greeting each student by name. Evelyn had donated her formal dining chairs to the reading corner, where a donated rug softened the hardwood. They'd built it slowly, carefully. A table for pencils and flashcards. A cabinet labeled Math SOS. A tiny cubby by the front door that read, Leave worry here. Saturday dinners became a quiet tradition. Not loud, not advertised. Just neighbors, bowls in hand, arriving like clockwork. Dishes were shared. Stories were told. Folding chairs scraped politely against tile. Evelyn, who once served solo casseroles to an empty table, now rationed Tupperware to prevent hoarding. And still, the past tried to find a crack. 3 weeks after the final ruling, Jason made one last attempt to retake the narrative. He posted a photo of the bungalow, filtered in grayscale, captioned in italics. The house my mother used to say would always be mine. Sometimes the deepest wounds are made by the people who raised you. For 10 hours, it sat untouched. Then the comments came. First, a simple one from someone local. You didn't pay a dime toward that roof, dude. Then a flood. Photo replies of community events, kids with books, veterans holding quilted lap blankets, a shot of Evelyn smiling behind a pot of chili, a link to the public trust document, a video clip of Jason yelling from the shed, with the caption, Some inheritance. The post disappeared by morning, so did Jason's profile. No farewell, no defense, just digital dust. Nina left soon after, not dramatically, quietly. Someone on Nextdoor posted a moving truck spotted at her condo, and another neighbor confirmed she'd taken a job transfer to Dallas. A week later, her name disappeared from the HOA directory. No one asked where Jason went. Lily stayed vigilant. Security backups uploaded daily, copies sent to Daniel, cameras maintained like museum artifacts. But she no longer checked the live feed at night. There was nothing left to watch for. Evelyn's days grew slower, but not smaller. She rearranged the sunroom into a reading nook and kept fresh carnations in a mason jar by the window. She took morning walks with a neighbor who used to avoid eye contact. She cooked less for survival and more for joy. And one afternoon, she ordered something small, a bench, cedar, weather-resistant, nothing fancy. She placed it at the edge of the front garden. Beneath the crepe myrtle Jason once swore he'd cut down for being messy. She screwed a plaque into the wood herself. Home is where kindness lives. Neighbors asked if it was a quote from somewhere. Evelyn just smiled and shook her head. No, she said. It's just what I learned. Lily took a photo of the bench that night, golden hour falling across it like a blessing. She didn't post it. She printed it, framed it, set it beside Evelyn's armchair where the fireplace crackled gently beneath a hand-knit quilt. Evelyn studied it for a moment, then leaned back with her eyes closed. Peace had not come cheap, but it had come honestly. And now, it stayed. The envelope was matte black with silver lettering, the kind that tried too hard to feel expensive. It had no stamp, just a courier label. When Evelyn opened it, she found the language dressed in false civility. We believe your property may qualify for liquidation under investor relocation incentives. We are prepared to offer you a generous cash-out sum in exchange for a swift, off-market deed transfer. Delays may result in lost opportunity. Evelyn didn't blink. She just refolded the letter and slid it across the kitchen counter toward Lily. Investor, Lily asked, reading the fine print. This is basically a corporate scam. No, Evelyn said. This is bait, and we don't take bait. She called Daniel. He answered before the first ring finished. Let me guess, he said. Courier envelope? Black faux embossed lettering. That's the one, Daniel chuckled under his breath. They've been blanketing aging homeowners all over Travis County, trying to spook people into fast sells with legal language that means nothing. I'm not spooked, Evelyn replied. I'm angry. Good, Daniel said. Then let's hit back, publicly. By the next week, Evelyn had filed a cease and desist for property harassment, citing unauthorized solicitations, predatory targeting of seniors, and attempted interference with a charitable trust. Daniel uploaded the documents, redacted, annotated, and completely transparent, to a public records folder linked from the Magnolia HOA page. The caption read, If you receive this letter, you are not alone, and you are not unprotected. The post was shared 73 times before sundown. 2 neighbors texted Evelyn directly with screenshots of their own letters. One brought her banana bread and cried on the front porch. You're the only one who fights back, she said. The rest of us just shred and pray. Evelyn didn't feel like a fighter. She just felt done being quiet. And still, Jason tried. Just once. A single call. It came late one night, long after dinner and well past any hope of decency. Lily was the one who saw it first, Jason's name still in her blocked caller list, blinking through a voicemail preview on Evelyn's landline. Unknown number, ZARP 47. She pressed play. Jason's voice was softer now, not apologetic, but hollow. You win, okay? I hope it was worth it. I hope you sleep better knowing you killed everything, family, legacy, all of it. He paused. You know this was never about the money. Another pause, then the call cut off. Lily deleted it without speaking. Evelyn, standing by the sink, watched the entire thing. When it was gone, she turned back to her tea. That was the sound, she said softly, of someone realizing they can't haunt a place they no longer have keys to. The next morning, she wore her favorite sweater, navy blue with a loose weave, and walked to the community center 2 blocks over, where the tutoring program now held overflow sessions. Inside, the room buzzed with life. A teenager explained pre-calc to a 3rd grader using gummy bears and note cards. An older woman taught cursive with gentle strokes. A young mother held her baby while helping another child with reading. And in the corner, Lily stood beaming, clipboard in one hand, hot chocolate in the other. When she saw Evelyn, she crossed the room in 4 long strides and hugged her, tight and wordless. You made sure he'd never live here again, she whispered into her grandmother's shoulder. And you made a home for so many. Evelyn didn't cry. She didn't need to. Instead, she walked outside, sat on the cedar bench beneath the crepe myrtle, and traced her fingers over the plaque. Home is where kindness lives. She looked down Magnolia Lane, the trimmed hedges, the chalk art on sidewalks, the sound of someone's wind chime catching the breeze. And then, almost to herself, she said it aloud, the line she'd never given herself permission to say before. My son called me useless and told me to leave. So I made sure he'd never live in his own house again. Not bitter, not vengeful, just true, and finally spoken. And